Joined by President Trump's first White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, who does very few television interviews.
Yes.
So
I'm liking my anonymity.
Yes. Now that you're out of the White House and in private life, you served in the role of Chief of Staff for almost a year there. This is a key moment for the president. No matter how much the Republicans dismiss what's happening, the Democrats control the House, and he may be impeached.
Well, I mean, it's a key moment, and it can go one way or the other. It could end up being good for the president. It could end up being really bad for the president. But as of today, this has been a very partisan lead up to today's, I would call it a ceremony that we're watching on television. I think the Democrats made a strategic mistake by leaking mostly all of the kind of juicy details before today, because I'm watching it. I study this stuff. I agree with Major. It's hard following all these facts, but nothing really new came up today. And I think what's important is for everyone to understand what this is. Number one, there's been no consummated wrongdoing. In other words, the act, even assuming the worst facts for the president, wasn't actually followed through. The money was released. So now you have really a trial about the state of mind of the president. We're now examining whether or not the president had bad intentions in his mind. However, the Republicans aren't able to actually call any witnesses to defend or explain what the president's state of mind is.
They will be able to call witnesses. They've put forward a list.
If enough Democrats agree with the list, sure. But that's a stacked court. I mean, we call that in law a monkey court. So we'll see.
I've heard that argument before. Governor Haley, Ambassador Haley, made that same argument with me on Sunday morning, and that the act wasn't essentially consummated. But in fact, the aid was withheld for a long period of time. It was Republican and Democratic members of Congress that said to the White House, this is a problem. You heard the Ambassador Taylor saying that this was a problem today. That's eventually why. And still, the president of Ukraine has not had a meeting with President Trump.
Well, here's the issue, though. I mean, here's what it's going to come down to. I hear what you're saying, but I think in the president's mind, and I think the people that were in charge of releasing the money knew they had until the end of the quarter, till the end of September. Ultimately, the money was released. So the question is then, do the American people, do the 300,000 people out there in 8 states that are going to decide this election, do they believe that it's appropriate to impeach and remove a president because the release of money was delayed, and the case is now being made that it was delayed because the president may or may have not had bad intentions? I mean, that's what this is coming down to, and I think it's a bridge too far.
Do the people in those states, do you think that the president of the United States took actions that strengthened Russia's hand?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends, because I think I've heard people debate whether or not this is a denial of Russian interference. I think you can have it both ways. I think you could make the argument that perhaps, we know that Russia interfered with the 2016 election. I accept that. I think most Republicans accept that.
The president was pushing to have Ukraine say that they were interfering in the election, which every intelligence agency has said did not happen. It was the Russians. That's clear.
But that's my second point. There are plenty of people out there that are claiming that Ukraine, in fact, did interfere in the 2016 election. And the question is, if they didn't, fine. Maybe they didn't. But I think ultimately one of the things the Republicans have to get straight in this argument is debating this case on the merits, debating the case of if everything the Democrats said was true, is this a crime? And my answer would be no, and it's certainly not impeachable.
But Reince, to the point you just made, is it appropriate? Are you comfortable with a president for whatever period of time holding something of value from a nation that is not maybe a pure ally, but an emerging ally, in order to pursue something of particular personal interest and value? Are you comfortable with that?
It doesn't matter whether I'm comfortable with it. It doesn't matter whether
is that the way a president should conduct the powers of the office, use the powers of the office, and employ them at his own discretion for what may be his own personal use?
It doesn't matter whether it's appropriate. It doesn't matter whether I think it's... No, it doesn't. Presidents don't get impeached because they acted inappropriately. Presidents get impeached because they conducted themselves in such a way that they committed a high crime or misdemeanor as outlined under the Constitution.
I think Bill Clinton was impeached for acting.
There's plenty of things that presidents do.
I think Bill Clinton was impeached for acting inappropriately.
Sure, but
doing worse.
Right. But he himself lied under oath in an investigation. Right now we have hearsay evidence that the president committed a quid pro quo illegally, or at least, so far above the line that he should be impeached. That line in the rough transcript, when the president referred to
a favor,
do me a favor, and the Bidens may have been, the prosecutor didn't follow through. Who did he say to Zaleski to talk to? He said talk to
Rudy Giuliani.
No, he didn't say Giuliani. Read it. He said talk to the Attorney General, because the Attorney General was running around trying to get to the bottom of what happened in the 2016 election, and he's going to be issuing a report. He didn't say, look at the Bidens, hey, the prosecution was called off, I want to know why this prosecution was called off, talk to Rudy. He said talk to the Attorney General. No one's making the case that the Attorney General is acting inappropriately.
I think since the Attorney General has said that he was uncomfortable with that suggestion in that particular transcript, and there wasn't any conversation that took place.
But it's a president's state of mind that's at trial. That's all this is. It's what was in the president's mind. And I don't think so far anything has changed today as far as the facts that, as we know them before today.
Do you think the president's current acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, should testify?
Well, I think any person that has exculpatory evidence, anyone that knows something that would shed some light to the positive that's working for the president should share it.
And
but that's not the position of Mick Mulvaney at the moment.
It's not the position of the White House. So
and it's not the position of the White House.
No, the White House put out an order, which I agree with the letter. I think the letter was very well done. Democrats have said the letter was very well done. His position has been, because the Schiff investigation was unconstitutional for all the reasons Pat Cipollone laid out, the White House counsel, he said no witnesses, no cooperation, no documents. And I think it could be that one of the reasons why Mick Mulvaney hasn't spoken out to explain, hey, this is what I did at the OMB, this is what happened, is because he's adhering to the advice of the White House counsel. Do
you think, you mentioned a moment ago, you do not impeach a president over something that is inappropriate. Is there something about the Trump style that you think is in sharp relief here? That is to say, as it was referred to in the testimony, he's a businessman. He wants something in exchange if he's going to write you a check. Is there something Trumpian about this that is unique to this president that the country has to get used to, Democrats have to get used to, those who are made uncomfortable by it in the State Department bureaucracy or who are accustomed to State Department ways also have to get used to?
Well, I think we're getting used to it. I think Washington, D.C. is getting used to it. But here's my point. President Trump was elected in many ways because he represented a huge middle finger to this town. And so he gets judged often through that lens, not through the lens of Barack Obama or Bush 43 or 41, but through the lens of the person who was elected in 2016. So I think a lot of people look at this, whether it be, some of the other supposed scandals and the Stormy Daniels or this or that, and they look and judge the president through that lens. And I think people if you're talking to voters in the middle of Wisconsin, I hate to tell you, but they're just not paying attention to this. And they look at this, and as long as it stays partisan, this isn't going to have any legs.